republic for which it stands.
One nation, under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty and justice for all.
Guns, self-defense, concealed carry. This is the Patriot Defense Podcast. From the war room in Idaho's high desert, here's your host, Todd Echols.
And we are back once again. It is a Monday morning, and I am back with the training series, and I believe I had this all prepared. Training series, episode 5, and today we are going to talk about fishing and bowling, and it sounds like we're getting away from guns. Fishing and bowling, America's two other favorite pastimes. It's actually not what we're talking about. When we talk about fishing and bowling, we're talking about things that that people do without thinking about it when they are handling their firearms, when they're shooting their guns, that can lead to what we call training scars, and they are really hard to fix. So let's talk about when we learn to shoot a firearm. Okay, there's things that you just start doing, and you build. You learn one thing, you build upon it. You learn another, you build upon that. You learn another, and you just it's kind of a building process as you go, right? But there's a lot of little things that as you build upon certain principles, certain foundations when it comes to shooting, certain fundamentals that there's certain things in between that maybe you're not exactly working on, but you want to make sure you're still doing those correctly because there's a reason for it in the future. There's not necessarily a reason for it right then and there, but you got to do it correctly or it's going to bite you in the future and be harder to break a bad habit, which creates what we call a training scar or a range scar. So now that I've thoroughly confused literally everybody, well, I think I confused myself. Let's talk about what is fishing and what is bowling. Okay, we'll just start there instead. This is kind of a hard one to explain when you're not in person, but what is fishing and bowling? Well, when people pick up their firearm to shoot their gun, there is a correct way to then press that gun out and shoot it. Okay, and to fire that gun. Press that gun out, acquire the sights, and to fire it. There's a correct way to do it, and there's some incorrect ways of doing it. One of those ways is called fishing. And you've probably seen it before. It's when someone picks up a gun, they put it in both their hands, they get that grip on it, and they kind of swoop the gun down. It's called bowling, excuse me. They swoop the gun down and bring it back up on target. It's this big like half circle swooping motion to the bottom, like they're bowling, like they're throwing a bowling ball. And we call that bowling. Fishing, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. It's exactly the opposite, where they are holding the firearm, they are pointing it kind of up in the air, which they shouldn't be doing. Remember, you're responsible for every round that leaves your gun. You always need to point it in a safe direction, which is typically going to be at the dirt berm, not up in the sky. But people point it up into the sky, and they do a fishing motion, which is they do the opposite of bowling. They go up, make this big arcing motion, and come down, coming past the target, when then they have to raise the firearm back up to resettle the sights. Those are really inefficient movements. And when you're first learning to use your firearm, to shoot your firearm, you start with the fundamentals, right? You don't necessarily go to the draw. Where those two motions, those fishing and bowling, is something that you want to be concerned about when you are learning how to draw your firearm. So when you go to draw your firearm, this is so hard. This is so hard to explain in podcast form. But it is a 6-step process or a step-by-step process, right? Step 1, you want to grab your firearm. Step 2, you want to draw it up out of the holster. Then you want to drop your elbow. And at this point, the firearm is up next to you, right? But it is pointing directly at the barrel is even. It's not pointing up. It's not pointing down. It's pointing directly at the threat or at the target. And then you drive the gun out and up, but you're not doing an arcing motion. It's going from, imagine that there is a rectangle in front of you, and it's going from the bottom corner of the rectangle up to the top far corner of the rectangle. You're driving that gun out. It's always pointing at the threat, in the direction of the threat. It's going out and up into your line of sight. That's the way you should present the firearm. Too many times, people, when they haven't got to the point of learning how to draw the firearm or learning what that is, they just pick up the gun haphazardly, load it, rack the slide, and then they swoop it out there. They do the bowling motion, or they do this fishing motion. Like, we don't want to do that. The reason why we don't want to do that is because it is very inefficient, and it's going to affect you when you learn to draw. It's a bad habit. So you always want to do things correctly. Remember, you don't want to shoot over the berm. You don't want to shoot at the ground. You want to be efficient in your movements. And in a self-defense situation, right, when you learn that draw, you want that gun, you dump that elbow, you want that gun pointing directly at the threat, because you may have to fire one-handed up close to your body at that point. Now, if you are in the habit of drawing that gun, pointing that barrel up in the air, well, those bullets are going to be zipping by your face, and it's going to go up and over the threat. And you're responsible for every round that leaves your gun, and it's ultimately inefficient. And even if you don't have to shoot right there, you're going to come back on your threat. You're going to miss the threat. You're going to have to pull your sights back up. It's just an inefficient movement, right? You need to be able to engage and fire if you have to, fire as you're driving that gun straight out. So you don't want to fish. You don't want to bowl. When you deal with a firearm, when you handle that firearm, you always want to be getting in repetitions, right? You want to handle that firearm perfect every single time, even when it comes to safety. You never point at anyone. You keep your finger off the trigger. I spent all yesterday at a vendor show where I'm just kind of got Patriot Defense has a booth, and I'm talking to women at this actual particular vendor show about classes and about what we can offer them and that stuff, right? And I take a couple blue guns there, and I don't know why. It's just kind of something to, I don't know, just kind of juices up the booth a little bit, makes it look a little fancier, I guess. And I sit there and I handle these blue guns like all day long. I'm never pointing them at anyone, and I'm never putting my finger on the trigger. They are blue guns. They are chunks of inert plastic, right? But my finger's never going on the trigger. Why is that? Because whenever I handle an actual firearm, I treat it with all the safety it deserves. Whenever I'm practicing dry fire, I'm going to grip the gun. I'm going to drive it out, just like we talked about, from the bottom of that corner of that rectangle up to the top corner of that rectangle into my line of sight every single time. So I'm getting those correct repetitions in over and over and over again. I do not want to do it wrong. I do not want to bowl that gun out there. I do not want to fish that gun out there. I don't want to do any of that, because all that's doing is screwing up my muscle memory. Or if you don't buy the muscle memory thing, because a lot of people don't, they actually have scientific studies now. They call them neural pathways. And in your brain, when you do something over and over and over again, you create neural pathways. That's how you're going to do it every single time, right? And you can create incorrect neural pathways. If you do something wrong over and over and over again, that's the way you're going to do it every single time, right? It's habit forming. That's what you're going to do. You can break those neural pathways, but it's a lot harder. It's much easier to do them correct every single time. Shooting. What is shooting? Shooting is nothing but muscle memory. It's nothing but neural pathways. It's doing the correct thing over, and the right correct thing, over and over and over and over and over again. That's all shooting is. Think about it. You got the firearm in your hand. You got the good grip. You're pointing at level. You have the correct drive out. You acquire the sights. You got the stance. You acquire the sights. You press the trigger when the sights line up and you're on your target, on your whatever you're shooting at. When you're on, sights are on, right? And you press that trigger. So that is what we call almost like one rep. Granted, you've done different things in that rep, right? The grip, the stance, the press out, the trigger, the acquiring the sights, and the trigger press, right? They've done different things, but that is one rep. And so that is one time through. So that's doing everything correct one time through. Boom, take the shot. Guess what? Gun levels back out. You acquire the sights. You still have the good grip. You've mitigated that recoil. You press the trigger again. Boom, that's two. So 1 rep, 2 rep, 3 rep, 4 rep. It's like 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot, 4 shot. It's doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. Once you can do that, once you can be successful at that, then you can start moving and shooting. You start adding a whole bunch of other stuff. Then you add the draw to the whole situation. So it's building, 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 building. But that is just a really poor way of telling you what fishing and bowling is. And you want to drive it straight. Again, I will get a video up. I will throw a video up and get this taken care of later on this afternoon. I think I owe you guys a video from last week. God, I can't. We're a month in, and I've done all these podcasts, and I'm just now starting to drop the ball a smidge. I will correct that. That is unacceptable. I need to develop that muscle memory, those neural pathways, and do all the stuff correctly. But I'll throw up a video later on today. So here you go. That is today's podcast, training series podcast, fishing and bowling, and kind of what it is and why we don't like it, why it is a bad thing. If you enjoyed these podcasts, share them with your family, share them with your friends. I know they're short. These ones were meant to be short. So it is what it is. Enjoy them and get out and shoot, man. Get out and shoot. Get out and train. Everyone have a good week. Talk to you later. Bye.